Welcome to the Feds, insiders bringing accountability, integrity, and reform to a broken bureaucracy. At Feds for Freedom, we value constructive dissent and healthy debate. The views and opinions shared in today's episode are those of the speaker alone and do not express the views or opinions of the U.S. government or any other employer.
Welcome back to this week's episode of The Feds, where we talk about government overreach. I am Stephanie Weidel. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe to, and share these podcasts. Feds for Freedom is co-sponsoring a one-day conference with the Virginia Medical Freedom Alliance on April 5th at Liberty University. We will be bringing our inside knowledge on how to spot government overreach and how to fight against it to the college students of Liberty. You can register as well and hear from the awesome medical, military, and government speaker lineup. Investigative journalist Christine Dolan, as well as Vice Admiral Dean Lee, will be featured alongside our own Marcus Thornton, Jim Erdman, and Carolyn Rocco. It'll be an invigorating day, and you get to be a part of it. Check out vamfa.org or VAMFA.org to register and reserve your seat at the table. This week, we are joined by Holly Felmlee, who is a financial analyst for the Department of Defense Education Activities, or DODEA, who worked in Japan and Belgium during the COVID years. Based on her vaccination status, she was unwillingly put on AWOL status and fired, rehired, and fired again within a 4-day period. I'll include the link to my first interview with Holly below. Holly filed an Equal Employment Opportunity Commission complaint and sued the DOD. And she recently won the case and is here with me to talk all about it. Holly, thanks so much for joining me. It's good to see you again.
Hi, good to see you too.
Well, why don't you, in a nutshell, review for us how you ended up fired from the DODEA job that you had?
Sure, of course. In a nutshell, I started in Okinawa, Japan as a financial analyst. When COVID hit, we decided to move our family over to Europe just to have a broader experience. Being on an island was really tiny. We couldn't get flights in and out. I mean, it was really, really tough, especially the Japanese when they went full on COVID lockdown. I mean, we were literally trapped. So my husband took a job in Belgium. And at that point, my job happened to transfer over. I was a financial analyst for the Department of Defense Education Activity, or DODEA, so I'll call it DODEA from now on. And I basically did their payroll for all their teachers and admins and anyone who was in my district. And so when we found out we were going to Belgium, I messaged the department over there, and they said, yeah, we have a job here. Come on over. We'll find a spot for you. So we ended up in Belgium, where I was there until I was terminated during the end of COVID, which was the end of COVID, but they drug that out another 2 years.
What was the reasoning for your termination?
It depends who you ask. You ask the EEOC, it's for retaliation. No, so I actually, September 8th, when Biden put in the mandate that everyone had to get a vaccine to keep their jobs, on September 8th, I said, I need a religious exemption. I need it, and I kept being told by my superiors, we don't have that information. I filed a religious exemption for my kids every year at school for the flu shot. I filed it for myself. It's never been more than a piece of paper that you fill out and turn it in. For some reason, they didn't have guidance on how we were supposed to file a religious exemption for the COVID vaccine, which I thought was really strange. So that was in September. October goes by, November goes by. We still don't hear anything. I'm asking frequently, hey, I want, I'm trying to be proactive here. I don't want to lose my job. What do y'all want me to do? Because at this point, there was all sorts of mandates. Okay, well, only the unvaccinated have to mask, and only the unvaccinated can, go out to dinners or whatever with the group, or it's just all kinds of up and down stuff at the office. But basically, I filed my religious exemption. I think, if I remember correctly, it was like December 2nd, and they weren't sure how this was all going to play out on December. See, I was fired on the 24th. I'm trying to think of the exact dates, but it was the Wednesday before I filed an EEOC complaint because I was like, this clearly, something is fishy about this. I'm not feeling comfortable with this. So I filed my EEOC complaint on a Wednesday. And up until that point, I had been asking because they said, if you're not vaccinated, starting Monday, whatever it was, that following Monday, you will not be allowed in the building. And so I was like, look, how can I go into the building like, I don't understand. Can I take leave? Can I, be sick that day? Can I work from home? I was begging them to give me the information. They would not give me any information. So I filed that EEOC complaint on Wednesday. The following Monday, I was terminated, or I was not allowed into the building. I was considered AWOL. They put me on AWOL. Tuesday, I was terminated. And it's a long story. You can watch the first podcast for the whole details on how that went down. Wednesday, I got an email saying I was rehired and that I would be granted leave. And then Friday, I got another email saying I was terminated again, this time for poor performance. And so it was just a roller coaster of a week. And then we couldn't stay in Belgium financially anymore. And that sent us packing back to the United States.
And so you filed that EEOC complaint, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission complaint, in December of 2021. Where did you land when you got back to the United States, and what was your situation there?
It was horrible, to be honest. So when I got terminated, my husband immediately started looking for a stateside job. And he applied all over the place. I mean, we were really trying to, I say all over the place. We knew we would only go back to Florida or Texas, because during the Biden administration, we just didn't feel comfortable in any other blue states. We wanted to go back somewhere we're from Texas. So we either wanted to be in Texas where we knew, we had more freedoms than we would anywhere else, especially with our kids. So the very first job he got offered was in Key West, Florida. And that sounded really great. Key West, Florida, right? Who doesn't love Key West, Florida? So he accepted that job. It is so expensive there that is the only military base housing that a civilian can live in. So they were like, if you come down here, we will supply your housing. So we were like, it's not going to be that expensive because the housing is way less than you would pay if you lived in Key West. So we went down to Key West. They didn't have housing available. They said it's going to take 3 months to get you housing. And we're like, it's not a big deal. That's anytime we've ever moved, 3 months for you to get your stuff. You live in an Airbnb for 3 months. It's usually not that bad. We got down to Key West and they put us in a hotel, me, my husband, my 3 girls, and our cat. And this was a hotel room. It had two full-size beds, and my, bless her heart, 12-year-old daughter was on a rollaway cot at the time. They rolled the cot in. So it was all 5 of us in this hotel room. We did that for about 4 months, and it was absolute misery. Key West was beautiful. The people were really nice, but that was just untenable. So at that point, my husband's like, you guys promised us housing. What is going on? Well, they had really bad humidity in Key West. So the mold is really bad there. And so they had to condemn a bunch of the houses that the military people lived in. And they said, well, it's going to be 18 months until we can get you a house. And at this point, we had been in this hotel for 4 months. And we said, absolutely not. We're not going to live in a hotel for 4 months or for 18 months, excuse me. And there was another job that had come after he accepted the Key West job up at Tyndall Air Force Base, which is in Panama City, Florida. So he called them back and said, hey, is that job still available? Please, we'll take it. And they said, yeah, it's still available. So after 6 months, it took us 6 months to get out of that hotel room. We went up to Panama City, Florida, and finished out about 18 months there until we got where we're at now.
And we're going to be talking about your schooling situation closer to the end, but let's focus on the EEO complaint. What were you arguing in your EEO complaint?
Just basic religious discrimination. But the second I applied for my religious accommodation and then the retaliation, because I filed that EEOC complaint on a Wednesday and was terminated the following Monday, so not even a week after I did that. But it was retaliation and religious discrimination were the 2 main complaints.
Okay. So what did the EEO process entail? Walk us through.
Yeah. So I applied for EEO protection, December. It had to have been around the 17th, 15th, 16th, 17th, somewhere around there. I have still not seen any money in my bank account. And we are, 4 years, almost 3.5, 4 years after that. So it's a lengthy process, I can tell you that. It's a lot of paperwork. It's very expensive. It's very time consuming. And most of all, it's extremely stressful, as you can imagine.
Yep. So just walk us through with the investigation. Now, there's an investigator that's put onto your case, and you put down every person that you have a complaint against, and they are to go and investigate. Did you feel like that investigation was thorough?
I'm going to do my best to answer this just because, again, it's been 3.5 years. It's been such a long process. I forgot that even happened. But yes, I put down every single person. Some people were easier to track down than others because of the amount of documents that I saved, because I had saved everything. Any correspondence between my boss, any correspondence for me asking for leave prior to me putting on AWOL. Like, I had so much documentation. I had all of my performance reviews because, like I said, when they finally terminated me, they says for poor performance. I had where the week before that they were asking for my vacation days all the way through the next year because they needed coverage over the holidays. So I just had so much information, documentation, that, I felt I had a good case. As far as the investigation went, I think without the documentations, I'm not sure that speaking to a bunch of employees who probably were nervous about losing their jobs, that the truth would have fully come out, if that makes sense. So it is a little bit partisan, especially when your original EEO person works for the agency that you're trying to sue. So
yeah, we've brought this up in some podcasts recently that basically we're asking the agency to investigate itself. I mean, this goes for Inspector Generals, the Office of Special Counsel, the EEOC. I mean, all of these agencies, they're just investigating themselves. They're not going to actually do a thorough job. Okay,
exactly.
So you got through the investigation, and then what happened? At what point did you bring in a lawyer?
So I did as much as I could on my own. That included, Googling how to put together a legal filing, the layout, what it's supposed to look like. I did as much as I could by myself. And it just, the case kept progressing. Fortunately, I kept getting, it's going forward. You have a case. And then I was assigned a judge and had my initial, I guess, I want to say trial, but that's not what it was. It was a hearing, I think, if I remember correctly. And at that point, I knew I needed counsel. So I did seek counsel from another teacher that I knew who had gotten terminated for refusing the COVID vaccine as well. She was using him and got in touch with him. And he kind of took it from there, thank God, and led us to today where we won.
So how many years of having a lawyer and spending lawyer fees on this did it actually take?
Good. I mean, we're going on 3 years now. And it's, lawyers are not cheap. And so I just kind of stepped back. I was afraid to text him because I'm like, I don't want to be charged, for him to take the time to send me a text message back or whatever. But at the same time, I had complete trust in him. I everything he did, he was very transparent when we did speak, and I just kind of let him run with the ball. And anytime I had any questions, he was super straightforward. But like I said, every step, even though it did take 3 years, I mean, every step was just a little bit of, I don't know, motivation, because we were still moving forward. And if I remember correctly, our original claims, and you'd have to look at the paperwork, was 11 claims that we made. And I know it was mainly discrimination, mainly retaliation, but I guess there's subsections in the EEOC that you file for. The judge only picked up 3 of those out of the 11 that we were claiming. And I think he ruled in my favor on 2 out of the 3, if I remember correctly. I could be a little bit off, but I know that there were some things that he kicked out, because as soon as I saw those, I reached out to Scott. I'm like, oh my God, what does this mean? Does this mean I lost? He said, no, we're keeping these in here. They're throwing these out. So there was a little bit of back and forth. Again, without a lawyer, I would have no idea what I was seeing, what I was reading, if it was good or bad. So the process is definitely confusing, and I don't think any person without a lawyer could make it from A to Z, honestly, and have a favorable outcome.
So, and you just won in December of 2024, is that correct?
Correct. And they won, no. In November. We heard in November.
Okay, November of 2024.
But that's that we won. I mean, knock on wood. I mean, I think it's too late now, but they could have appealed that. If DODEA had appealed it, I would have been tied up in court for another, they said 3 to 4 years if they had appealed it. Thank God they didn't. So that's a whole other part of the process. I can't imagine, someone having to go through that. But we were ordered, the judge ruled in our favor. But until DODEA actually sent that letter saying that they were not going to appeal, I still didn't feel comfortable. I'm like, they could appeal. It's not over yet, right? And then again, until I see funds on my bank account, to me, it's not over. I'm still thinking about it daily.
Did you win monetary compensation?
They gave me back pay. However, the judge only gave me back pay through when we left Belgium because he said we did not prove that the reason that we left Belgium was because I lost my job. So the only thing I received financially was 8 months worth of back pay. Of course, will be compounded interest, but it's not a lot. And then there was monetary damage and then reinstatement. And the monetary damage was, I mean, all things considered, in my opinion, I'm grateful. Don't get me wrong. I'm so grateful to just be vindicated. But it definitely wasn't what we were expecting.
It's good to see that you won, that there was admission of wrong on the part of the DOD. But you're right.
Correct.
There's not much. Was there any kind of, in the decision that the judge had, was there any kind of requiring the DOD to remove the people who did this?
So they did require that, I believe, the facilities in Belgium, and I'm not sure at Okinawa, but I know at headquarters, the boss who terminated me, who they found guilty, that she has to undergo an EEOC training session of 4 hours, which is kind of, I enjoyed that. They recommended disciplinary action for her, but in Belgium and headquarters where she is located, they did have to put up, I guess, some kind of posters saying, this facility was found, in EEOC violation. If you have any concerns, here's a phone number, and it has to be left up for 4 or 5 months. I'm not sure of the exact details of that order, but that was also included, in the ruling.
Too bad they can't say this facility and this person and publicly say it. This person was found in violation and had that up on their door for 4 or 5 months.
I think she should have the scarlet letter, but that's, it's never going to happen. The lady's super close to retirement. I wouldn't be surprised if she said, screw your EEOC training and just retired. She was that hard-headed. And honestly, I think as much as I don't like her, the judge called her out several times and she kind of made the case for me. He was like, this lady is not credible. She could see her attitude every time she got on when we had to interview her. She was interviewed twice for the hearing and the trial. She just had the worst attitude. And I was like, I knew she was going to do that. I knew that because I know her, I know her personality. We had another lady who was on the trial who the judge called out, was like, I'm sorry for wasting your time, but you need to take this seriously. A lady lost her job and you think this is a joke. And so I just was like, okay, cool. At least they're being called out, because I think these people think they're untouchable. I think they can do whatever they want. And for the long time, they probably could. They probably were able to get away with this for a very long time. I think COVID changed a lot of stuff. And again, I had so much documentation, so much proof of everything that this smart alecky attitude that they had was not going to fly. And I also got really lucky that I had a good judge. I will say that as well.
So has this process, and especially winning the EEO case, has that brought closure to you?
Yes and no. Closure, I feel vindicated that we won. I think that's great. I hope that it paves the way for others who are in this situation, gives hope to those, who are in this situation. Like I said, I was one of the, I feel like, first people who started the CEO process, and many people lost their jobs, way after I did. They fought it for as long as they could, held on to their jobs. They submitted to testing weekly. Again, that was something I refused. That was the whole reason I wasn't allowed into the buildings. So I refused to test every Monday for God knows how long, indefinitely. So I know that there are other people out there, and if I set precedent or give them hope, then that is reassuring to me. That's great. It's also great that I showed my kids, hey, it's not always fair, and you can stand up for what's right. And hopefully, the little guy wins in the end, because it's not always going to be as it could have been, if you just sit down and say nothing. So.
Yeah, going back to what we were talking about before, how the EEOC seems to be protecting the individual over or not protecting the individual over the institution as it should be. What are your thoughts on that and the whole process of it?
I'm not really sure. I did a lot of research, obviously, going into this. And you can look up EEOC cases that seem like absolute nonsense, like frivolous lawsuits where people are being paid out thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars for just absolute garbage. And then here I am. I'm like, I have all this proof. Here's these, like, this was a clear violation of my religious freedom. And I feel like the remedy was not what I was expecting or what I thought would be fair. So it's hard to say. I don't know if that's because the EEO is protecting itself. I definitely think it should be an independent process, especially when you initially file, because you file with your agency. That seems a little quirky to me. That it's within the own agency.
Yeah, well, we know that Trump is intending to take like the inspector generals out from the agencies and put them separate. It would be good to have the EEOC separate as well. It makes sense.
I filed with special counsel also, and that was shot down. And I filed with the MSPD, and because I wasn't there for 2 years, that was kicked out as well. So again, for people who are truly a victim, your options are limited on what you can actually even do to, protect yourself.
Mm-hmm. What toll did this process take on you and your family?
I don't know. I can't measure it. Like I said, we would have never left Belgium. We wouldn't have spent 6 months in a hotel in Key West. We wouldn't have moved. That would have been our third move, and went to Panama City. It was rough. Emotionally for me, it was very rough. People like to say kids are resilient, but no kid wants to move 3 times within 2 years. They just don't want to do that. They really did love Panama City. So we're glad we ended up landing in Panama City. And that's where we're going to head back to after we leave here. But honestly, we had planned on staying in Belgium for as long as we were able to legally, which would have been another 4 or 5 years at least. So it's a give and take.
What are you doing now, and where are you?
So right now we are in Aviano, Italy. We love to be overseas. We've always loved traveling, especially with the kids. So we have to do 2 years. The way the government works is you can do 5 to 7 years overseas as a civilian, then you have to go back for 2 years. So when we went back to Florida, we did our 2 years there, and then we were able to come back overseas. So we just actually got here in November, first week in November. We got here, not really what we were expecting, a little bit different. We used to live in Sicily, and we thought we'd be living in Sicily, and it's completely different. So what we are going to do is finish out our 2 years, head back to Panama City, and buy a house and put some roots down for a little bit for the girls.
And let's talk about the school situation. Now, let me ask, have you been reinstated? Was that part of the agreement that you would be reinstated?
Yes, I was told that it was part of the agreement. And we just heard that DODEA does not plan to appeal any part of the judge's orders. So the back pay, the monetary damages, and the reinstatement, they are not appealing any of that. It hasn't happened yet. Logistically, I don't know how it will happen. That's not for me to figure out. That's for the agency to figure out. So from what I understand, I think they have until March 7th to get all this figured out. So I'll know probably more at that point what that kind of looks like. I know that, Trump has ordered all government employees to go back to the building. There's not a building here for me to go back to. So I don't know what that looks like, but I absolutely will be taking my job back. And, at that point, they give me all the back time, so I will be a tenured employee at that point.
So before we started recording, we were talking about the school situation and your own realization of what's gone on with the schools, especially the DODEA schools. Would you like to talk a little bit about that and what you have decided for your family and where to put your children?
So before, after I got terminated, I already knew a little bit about DODEA, obviously being there with the teachers and working with them. And the longer I was in the position, the more I kind of felt like the teachers weren't really there for the kids, especially overseas. Overseas, they were making insane amounts of money, getting all sorts of free things and flights home and free rent. And, you go work in Italy or Belgium or Japan or wherever. And it really came off like they were there to travel, like to get paid a ton of money and to travel and live, rent free. And I kind of just got this icky feeling about it. I didn't love it. So when we moved here to Aviano, I reached out to somebody who was writing articles about DODEA, and I just got to know her. And I said, I'm just really still not comfortable with sending my kids to DODEA. I just have this gut feeling like that it's bad. And so she connected me with some parents who are here now, who have complained about instances in the school of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and then sent me some other articles about people being shuffled around. And then, they have groups and talking to these people. They're like, yeah, nobody gets fired from DODEA. They move them around. It's really bad. And I'm like, yeah, I believe all that. I 100% believe all that. I get it. So at that point, we decided once we moved here, we're going to homeschool. And so that's what we've been doing here in Italy, and where I plan to continue to do for the next 2 years until we move back to Florida.
So you saw how it's very possible for the teachers to not have the students' interest at heart, to put their own travel desires ahead of their job. But what other fraud, waste, and abuse did you see as in your time as a financial analyst?
Most of it had to do with when we hit COVID, just some of the outrageous claims that the teachers wanted. When we were in Japan, they wanted to leave Japan. Again, I told you it was pre-lockdown, but they claimed they weren't safe there. They weren't safe from COVID in Okinawa, Japan. And so they wanted to leave. So DODEA set up a program saying, okay, fine, we will pay for you to go to, I think the headquarters is in Peachtree, Georgia, but I think they set up Virginia as a safe haven, is what they called it. And they said, anyone who wants to leave overseas, we'll send you there. And the only caveat is you have to teach on your time, like your time zone. If you're from Okinawa, you've got to stay up until 3 a.m. and teach your online class. And DODEA went to the union, or the teachers went to the union. They said, we don't like this. So then DODEA said, fine. What we'll do is we'll send you to your home of record. So wherever you signed up, if you want to go back to Tennessee or wherever it is that you came from, we will send you back there. And then they went back to the union and they were like, no, we don't want to go to our home. We want to go wherever we want to go. And we want the government to pay for it. And I guess the union got involved, and DODEA came back and said, fine, go wherever you want to go. We'll send you wherever you want to go. Literally. The whole thing is you're considered TDY when they send you to these places. So that means you get per diem, which is your food and stuff paid for. You get transportation money. So like taxi cab money a day, however much they're going to allot you depending on your location. So I just saw these checks being sent out, and again, like, this makes absolutely no sense to me. COVID, in the States, people are hoarding toilet paper, people are fighting. I'm like, why would you want to go there? Like, even Okinawa, even being stuck here, you're safe. You can sit at home and not leave. And, it was just very weird. And then I started hearing, because I was in the finance office. So again, I did payroll, but I was in the finance office. So there would be people talking of like, what do I do with this request? And then my boss would say, well, what is the request? Well, this person wants us to pay for her dog sitter because she's going back to the States for 3 months or however many months, because they had different dates. At first they said they were going to send them for 2 months, and then it was 3 months. And then I don't even know what it ended up being. But we were getting all these requests of like, I need a dog sitter and y'all need to pay for this. Or I don't want to just send, because at first they were just going to send the teachers. And then they said, well, I want to bring my whole family. I want to bring my spouse. I want to bring, all these people with me. I can't leave them. And I'm just going, you wonder why, in my mind, I was like, you wonder why we are in so much debt. Like, I'm watching these, dollar bills fly out of this building for these requests. I remember we had one teacher who said she wanted two hotel rooms because she had to teach in her time zone, which was 2 a.m, and her husband couldn't sleep. Her husband was in the hotel room with her and he couldn't sleep. So they needed 2 hotel rooms. So she could teach in one hotel room and he could sleep in the other. So and a lot of this was paid. Some of it was shot down. But I mean, it was just the stuff that was being turned in, even if it was shot down, the fact that these teachers had the audacity to like turn in receipts for like if they went back to Colorado and they're from Okinawa and they're like, I had to buy all new winter clothes. Like, it is so cold here. Here's my receipt. You need to reimburse me for like winter clothes. Like, it was stuff like that. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, then they claim to be like teacher of the year. And like, all I hear about is the kids. And I just want to educate the children. And I love children. And I'm like, no, no. So I just saw a bunch of that. And again, it just made me super jaded about that school system. I already knew the public school system was completely funked. And I think a lot of people were under the impression that the government school system, DODEA, especially overseas, they're ranked like number one and all this. And I'm like, no, this was complete nonsense. So I just,
Well, it's one thing asking for that, and then it's another thing granting them all of that money to buy a new wardrobe and to go to like Thailand if they want to and teach for months and months. I mean,
Vegas, we had a teacher that got fired for picturing her partying out in town. It went on Facebook and she got fired for that, which rightfully so, she should have. But again, I don't know what all was paid out, but I know the requests that were coming in, and I knew my other people in my office were like, what do we do with this? Is this approved? Is this denied? But I'm like, the fact that they were coming in, that people were asking for some of this nonsense, I'm going, okay, no, absolutely not. This is a complete joke. I would be embarrassed. I would be embarrassed if I was that teacher to be asking for a new wardrobe because I chose to go to Colorado and I was cold. Like, give me a break.
well, this is where you hope the Doge will come in and pinpoint those particular people as the ones that actually need to be fired.
Yeah, and I think a lot has to do with the unions as well. And the union was a huge deterrent for a lot of things that, even as much as I think that DODEA needs some restructuring, the unions have really hampered what they can and can't do. So anytime I was doing payroll stuff, if something happened, even if it was something that shouldn't have happened or not, let me take it back. If I was doing something that should have happened, if they got a debt, right? If they got a debt for moving too early or getting the pay raise or whatever the issue was, they had a debt. If they squeaked loud enough and went to the union, like, our hands were tied. We would have to just eat the money, because if they got mad enough and if they knew the process, and because there was a process, they could work their way through the union. We would just have to eat the money. And I was taught how to write that off, and what I could and could not say when DODEA would screw up. There was, a time when we had a payroll screw up. I wasn't allowed to say certain things because that would implicate DODEA. And if it got back to the union, the whole freaking teachers union could sue us. And so I'm like, how can anyone be honest when you've got these two sides where, one side that's scared to step on the other side's toes and the other side's taking advantage of that? It's just not a good system. It's not tenable. And I think that's obvious. Doge does need to get in there, and scoop out a lot of the rot. And it's a boys club, and we could talk again hours on that. But it definitely has a lot of work that needs to be done.
So, congratulations, Holly, on getting this win. I mean, this is huge. And I mean, everyone at Pets for Freedom has been talking about this, that someone got a win. Do you know who it is? And here we are interviewing you again on this. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Well, let me ask one last question before we end. If the average American citizen could do one thing to combat the corruption that we have all experienced in the past 4 years, what would it be?
I could answer that. I would just say don't give up. Stick to your beliefs, stick to your truths. And I mean the real truth, not your own personal subjection of what the truth is. Not my truth, not your truth, but the truth. I would stick with that. And I think reality always asserts itself in the end. So you do what's right. And if you are being, a good person and faithful person, and you know what you're doing is right and true, I think that's all you can do. And that's what I would recommend anybody going forward.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for coming on with me, Holly. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe to, and share these podcasts. I'll see you next week.